Welcome, welcome, everybody. We have quite a large group here, so we're going to just allow a minute for everybody to get settled in, and then we'll get started. It's nice to see everybody here. All right. All right, so we're really happy to see everybody here tonight. This is the first evening of our fall parenting series. We have a great lineup of speakers, and I'm Camille Campbell. I am the Executive Director of Nido Marketing and Montessori Thrive, and we hold these parenting series 3 times a year. And just to get the housekeeping out of the way before we start, these are meetings, as you know, so everybody comes on muted, and we ask, because we have such a large group, if you can please just stay muted unless you want to speak up and join the conversation. As we're moving along, if you have a question, you can drop it in the chat, and we'll have a Q&A toward the end, and we can certainly try to address all the questions at that time. So I'm going to hand it over to Camilla, who is our community manager, and she's going to introduce our guest.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for showing up. Parent education is a big part of Montessori, and it shows that you really care about being a parent just by coming here and being willing to learn something new. So that's really great. I'm really excited about the speaker we have. We actually tried to get Pamela to come to some of our previous talks, but she is on call, as she is a midwife or a doula. So I'm just going to give her a brief introduction, and then she's put together a presentation, and I'll let her take it from there. So Pamela has taught children and families for over 30 years and holds Montessori credentials for parent to infant and child, preschool to kindergarten, and upper and lower elementary. So she's had experience with several different age groups within the Montessori space. She's going to talk to us today about Montessori from the beginning. So really from birth onwards into infancy. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because she's got a wonderful PowerPoint here. I'm going to just open it. Let's see here. Bear with me.
Did you want to start with your slides right away, or did you want to talk first?
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Pamela, and Camilla did a sweet introduction, and I really would like to just begin so that we can have time together later on. I just have a few slides I'd like to share with you, and an experience that I would like to offer to you as well. So you can see with the first slide that it's Montessori from the beginning. And in some ways, I think of, I would take almost the Montessori out of it and even trim that down to just the beginning. I, as a Montessorian, I've attended births since 1989, and so the way that I live my life is through Montessori, and so how I practice as a birth attendant is in that way. And we are all right now, all of us here are in our own prepared environment. We are in our home that we've prepared to be comfortable and to be present with yourself. And we are also sharing the environment together that has been created for us in this community, a prepared environment. And although those environments are all different, we're together, but we're in different spaces, and then we're together. there is an environment that is the global one, it's the universal one, which we all shared at one point, we experienced. And that is, and you can move on to the next slide if you would. That's our first environment, or the first prepared environment. So you can see this baby. This is a pretty good vision of the unborn child in the waters, and you can see the cord and the placenta and the way that we were moving, and we were free, and we were living a full life, So what I'd like to do right now, before we continue on to more slides, is to invite you to join me in an experience of remembering. And you can close your eyes if you'd like. You can keep them open so that you can be seeing this slide in front of you. It's up to you. What I'd like you to do, wherever you're at and however you're wishing to have your eyes, to just take a few natural and deep breaths, releasing any tension you're feeling, and settle into your body. Feel yourself contacting the seat beneath you, and if you can, bring your feet to rest against the floor. Notice your breath and allow each inhalation and exhalation to release any tension. Just let it go. And now bring the focus of your breath to your belly, feeling the rise and fall as you breathe in and out. As you breathe gently to the center of your belly, see if you can imagine that you are resting deep inside that inner space as an unborn child. Picture your tiny body, from your 10 tiny fingers and toes to your head, down, all curled or moving freely in your watery world. Your mouth may be opening and closing, your eyelids moving, and the warm fluid circling around. Envision your heart beating in the center of your chest, just as your own heart is beating now. Listen. Can you hear the pulsing of your mother's heartbeat, along with the whooshing sound of blood moving through vessels in the placenta? While in your warm nest, you are exploring your surroundings, your body with your mouth, hands and feet moving, extending. You reach, brush against, and hold your umbilical cord and turn, walking against the walls of your mother's uterus. Your touch and movement soothes and teaches you about your environment, mapping where you are. If you are close to the time of your birthing, you may also experience the practice of breathing the amniotic fluid in through your mouth. Maybe you smell and taste flavors in the watery fluid. Are they sweet or sour, familiar or new? Now, sense your mother's movements and feel some light pressure as she touches her belly. Do you push or kick back? You also respond to how she's feeling. Is she sad, happy, tired, anxious, or scared? Is she laughing so hard that it rocks you back and forth? Can you feel the tone of her voice as vibrations as she speaks or sings, helping you to respond and position yourself? Do you see a dim light in your darkness, as if through a fog, preparing you for the light that awaits when you are ready to leave your inner world? Stay for a moment in this past remembering, and when you're ready to return, you can gently stretch your body and open your eyes. So, however this was for you, it gives you a few moments to imagine or even relive our rich inner life, as I said, that we experienced during our mother's pregnancy. All of us had that first environment. And you can move on to the next slide. So here we have a mother who is doing something similar to what we saw in the first slide with the title. She has her hands cradling her unborn child, her baby. And this slide is talking about ways that we can connect and communicate and be in relationship with ourselves and with our child. Because this is I feel that pregnancy has the potential, and labor and birth, and from then onwards in parenting, to be a collaboration together. So it's not when we're pregnant, we are in our process, our child's in a process, we are independent, and yet we are together. And this just lists some things that I found for myself with my 2 pregnancies, but also in working with mothers and families for so long, that can be helpful for that connection and for that sensing of each other. So we touch, we can see movement. Sometimes during pregnancy, there's a way, and I feel this is true of us in pregnancy, mothers in pregnancy, and I think the partners as well, that we enter a time that is, I call it more horticultural time or biological time. We're moving away from the clock, and that continues up through in parenting, and for the child up through in Montessori, the first plane. The child is living more in the natural time and rhythm. So this lists some ways that we can be in a practice, and some of these are organic and some of these are practices that we can do. But singing and storytelling about our days, dancing, music, again, remembering that we are there, we are in collaboration together, and there's a process as we're moving towards, which is the process moment by moment that's leading to the labor and then to the birth and that whole experience. And I just want to mention something. I had a prenatal this morning, and when I was with this mother, we were talking about some practices that she was doing in her pregnancy. And she was talking about some breath work that she was doing that she found very helpful. And so I said to her that I feel that there's potential and possibility and reality that what we do in our pregnancy, how we are, and the ways that we are with our child, those become cellular memories in both of us. And let's say that if it's music or if it's the breath, that if we practice relaxation with that, then during the labor, we may use that as transitional support. And then afterwards, even after the birth, it will just trigger in us, both of us, this memory of whatever that brings up in our bodies and our senses. And one thing I told her today was our second child, Eli, he's 32, and when he was young, long ago, we had cassette tapes. We didn't have all the things we have now. So I don't know if any of you have heard of Enya, but that was the tape that we played when I would do relaxation in pregnancy. I would use Enya, and then during his birth, I had that, and that was playing. And then postpartum, we would use that often, and just, with him. And a number of years later, I taught childbirth class, and they were out, and then they came in, and the boys would play with, the birth videos, and they would. Eli went over this one day, and he just pressed down on the tape recorder. And it had been quite a few years, and he heard that music, and he said, "Oh, that's my song." And he hadn't heard that since the postpartum period, because my husband they would go off and do fun things while I would be teaching. But it's instilled in us, it's instilled in the child. So these are just some possibilities and we create our own in our own unique ways. And we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So this is a mother who is sitting on a physio ball, or way back when they first came out, they were called birth balls, but they're really physio balls. She is in her labor process. Again, she's cradling her belly. And one thing I want to say is that since the beginning of time, when the first birthing happened, nothing has changed in the woman, in the primal instincts for birth and pregnancy. Nothing has changed. The environment of birth may have changed as it has, but as far as what the needs of the woman in labor and I feel that they are sensitive periods actually during labor. These are some of them, but they haven't changed since the first birthing. And I just want to mention that. It talks about privacy and warmth and quiet. And if you think of we are mammals, just like any other mammal, and we want to be safe, and we want to be feeling that we're in a place that we can birth, we can labor and we can birth, and where we can have focus and move into our own organic rhythm and have that freedom to do so. Now, I will say that labor and birth is a mystery, as the same as the mystery of the child, the mystery of who we are. All is unknown, whether you birth at home or you birth in a birthing center or a hospital. But even wherever you birth, these aspects are in the mother, and they get expressed. The other thing I just want to note here, if you remember back to our early remembering, whatever your experience was, there are similarities in this short listing of some of the sensitive periods or the needs of the birthing woman and the life we were living as an unborn child. There are similarities in those two lives, which I find interesting. And again, that collaboration is there. We can go on to the next slide, which is of a birth. This was a water birth that my partner and I attended. And this was just moments. I had caught the baby, and this was just moments afterwards. The mother had her baby right away. Our hands are just there to guide, and then it's if the mother wishes or the partner, whoever would like to do this. So she's brought her baby up, and she's brought her baby up to the left side of her chest, which many studies have shown over many decades, and books have been written on this, that if women are left to their own process, and which is the mother and the child's process, if they're given that freedom, they will bring the baby up and bring the baby up to the left side of the chest, because it's the place where the baby can hear the heartbeat the best, and can smell and can feel the vibrations of her breath, which are baby memories, or in Montessori we call those reference points, but I like to think of them as baby memories. So we just organically and naturally will bring the baby up in that way. And this woman, I just also want to note the look on her face, which I have seen hundreds of times. Each one is unique, but after a birth, and it could be a birth that is also a cesarean. It's not, it is birth, and it is when we receive our child. But after this photograph was taken, she looked at me and she said, "I did it." And it just touched me so much, because again, I just feel in myself this bridging and Montessori of what I know of birth and what I know of the child. And we know as Montessorians and as parents that if given the freedom and given the space, and if we have a prepared environment where the child can practice, that I did it myself is voiced. And it was voiced here with this woman. So we can move on to the next slide. And this is the same baby. This is Emma, who's now 4 years old, I think. Maria Montessori said, the newborn child must become the object of wise and knowledgeable care. Even holding a newborn requires the utmost gentleness, and she should not be moved except with great tenderness. And Maria Montessori wrote extensively on birth. I don't know if any of you have found those writings before, but extensively on how children should be received at birth and during pregnancy, all of that. That was one of the reasons that I like to speak about this, because I don't want this forgotten. This is all part of her intention. So for us as caregivers, we honor the process of the mother and the child. It is their process. It is not ours. We are observing. If we come and we interact, it reminds me so much of how I move, and so many of us with children move as if we're merging with, rather than inserting ourselves. So even here, Emma has not been moved. She's with her mother, and the heartbeat, her heart tones are being listened to. And we then we're doing assessments at the birth and things, but unless there's something else needed, the baby is with the mother and with the parent, the co-parent, if there's a co-parent. And once things are settled, we leave the family alone and we go out of the room. We return when there's readiness in the family for us to do the newborn exam and to do the weighing of the child and everything. But how we are at birth is that we are receptive to right now the focus is on the newborn. We're receptive to the newborn, and we wait until that child's eyes meet. Like my partner normally does the newborn exam. She waits until those eyes are looking at her, and then she asks permission to begin. And she does things slowly so that the infant thinking that all is being taken in, we're the first hands. Want our hands to be soft hands and to be welcoming. And so saying each step of the process and then waiting for the newborn to process what's happening. So that's part of our preparation as birth attendants. And sometimes things have to be different. Sometimes they do. And we move with that. But there's still ways that this intention can be held in as much ways as possible. And we can move to the next slide. So then we've moved a while, and this is another baby that I helped with, and his mother, and she's carrying him in a carrier. And we come to the time of symbiosis, or sometimes in midwifery and universally, it's called the first 40 days or the baby moon time, which is a universal time. In Montessori, it's called the symbiotic period. It's the time of being one, but also in ways similar to pregnancy, we're living separate lives and yet we're together. So during that time, and really from the moment of birth, the mother and the child come into a process of adapting and accepting being a mother, no matter how many times you birth, being a son or a daughter, moving into that life. And this transition comes through many layers, but I'm just mentioning a few. How the child is held and skin to skin. You all have heard of that and perhaps experienced that with your own child or children. Being with the child rather than having, as much as possible, this be a doing, that we are as parents, and how we hold, how we are moving with our child, how we are caring for ourselves. This is a time of self-care, which is extremely important. And it's collaborative again. And it's a time where I feel that we are learning from the newborn during this time more than the mother's learning, but it's coming from cues from her newborn. And so the child is teacher in that. And there's the collaboration of learning cues from the mother and cues from the baby, and then being responsive to that. And then whatever way that we are nourishing our newborn, all of these are the first relationship that this child is having. So they're not just things that are done. This is process. This is relationship. This is being together and also being cared for. The last thing I mentioned is freedom, because we want to remember that that as we went back to being as we were an unborn child, we had freedom of movement. We had the ability to sleep and to wake up on our own. We have that capacity. So part of the early time is it's helpful to remember that and give the child the freedom to move from the moment of birth, because they will show you they don't want blankets on them and they're going to kick them off, and they want to be free, and then they want to come back to be with us. So that, I think, is the last slide in this little series. And this one is just one that is me. And if you're very welcome to contact me if you'd like, to email me or any way. This is just a listing of places that I can be found online. So that's it. And I'd love to hear from any of you, anything that you would like to ask or share, comment on.
Thank you so much, Pamela. I would love to know if there are any parents who are currently expecting and going through the pregnancy process, or perhaps have just gone through it and have an infant child, or have any questions that they'd like to reflect on from their own pregnancy journey, and that you can remember from. So feel free to drop any questions in the chat, or you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to just, you can put them in the chat or just kind of popcorn them out. I feel there's an organic nature to how these things happen. But I saw one hand raised. Brendan, did you raise your hand that you're in the, you didn't, okay. All right, I missed that. Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can.
My name is Karen Martin, and I actually have a 3-week-old baby. So this was just very beautiful. I mean, the way you put it together, it's just, a different perspective, and So I just wanted to share that. It's beautiful, and she's here with me right now. I'm rocking her to sleep. So it was just,
Oh,
it was very deep for sure. So thank you.
you're so welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I hope you're taking care of yourself, having some care for you too.
Yes, definitely. I'm fortunate and blessed to have a great support system with my mom and my in-laws. So yes, there's definitely some me time that I get here and there.
Good, good, wonderful.
Thank you. Yes.
Hmm?
We do have a question in the chat from Katie, who's asking if you could share or recommend any of the works by Maria Montessori that speak about pregnancy and birth.
In the Absorbent Mind, there's parts there. The Child and the Family is another one that does as well. Another book that I really like that I use at Ananda Montessori, and we sometimes do it because I do parent group there, is the Maria Montessori Speaks to Parents, which is a book that came out within the last couple of years. And I believe there is some reference in that one. There's so many, but The Child and the Family, I know for sure. The Absorbent Mind, The Secret of Childhood, I believe too. And the London lectures, I feel there's in there as well. But if you would you could also just Google and see. She wrote, and I'm just spacing on where this was, but she had written quite a long, I think it might have been in the Absorbent Mind, but that, and this doesn't, it means something to me when I first read it because of the work that I do, but at the time when she wrote this, because of the way that she envisioned and felt that babies can be received at birth, she felt that babies during her time that she was in that moment, babies should be born at home. And that was part of whatever was happening in her life. But I think that again, wherever we birth, we have a preparation towards birth that is part of our time in pregnancy.
Can I share something?
Sure.
I hope everybody can understand me. My English is not the best yet, but I want to share something about my both pregnancies, my first one and in a C-section, and I had my first kid in Spain, and my second one, I had it here in Houston, and I went to this birth center, and it was a huge difference. I had all my labor with this midwife that was amazing, and I just want to say that it's completely true, the thing that you can act like a mammal, like hiding, like taking all the dark room, all the respect, all the silence, and all the all that space for being you.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the same feeling. I had the feeling that you told, that it's I did it, because in my first pregnancy, and I mean, in my about them, OB told me, because my first thought was had my first kid in a natural birth. And I remember that I'm a nurse too, but I'm not a midwife. And she told me that if I wasn't go through No, if I want to go through the natural birth, my son will be dying. So I remember all the bad situations in the hospital, even working in an hospital, you know, I know the environment. But when I came here, one of my asks to my OB was, I don't want to be obligated to have a C-section, again, only because I had one before. And one of the things that made me change to a midwife, it was that he told me, if I don't go with you to the hospital, I can assure you that. And when I did the change with the midwife, it was an amazing decision. And I just want to share that if someone, obviously every people can have his own decisions, no? But if you are thinking on go to your birth to a midwife, I think that it's so much better for you as a mother that go to the hospital, because you have all that you say, you have all the respect, you have all the intimacy, and you can be free giving your birth.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, when you were talking, I was at the very powerful life experience you had, and you know, it's we're in our parenting, as I said, when we're pregnant, and then we begin our parenting, and we have this other life that we're caring for now, and we are moving through our process and the child's process. But it does bring up the process, I feel, of discernment, which, you know, to choose what we're wanting based on our own deeper knowing and, and our trust and those kinds of things, which are aspects that we can come into in our parenting, and if we would like. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Maria. We have another great question in the chat from Nadia. She's asking, how do you feel about co-sleeping? We are a Montessori family, and while our 6-year-old is extremely independent and wise beyond her years, we get many comments about the fact that our daughter sleeps with us. She's always slept with us from the start. Also, we're a biracial couple, and I'm from the Caribbean, and it's very common. And we also had a home birth. Any thoughts?
It is true that we in the United States are rare in so many ways. This is one way that we are rare, and that co-sleeping is a discussion point. You know, it's more universally that happens. And the same as universally the baby moon time, there's a cultural caring for the mother and the child that lasts for those 40 days. We've created a culture here in the United States, which is quite different than that. But, you know, one thing I'll say is that I feel over the hundreds of families I've been with, the majority of them have the baby in the room with them for some time after birth. And the baby, I mean, Maria Montessori talked about the Moses basket, or having the baby in close, and then the child may be in bed. It's a personal decision, but it is, you know, it is helpful physiologically early on for the mother and the baby to be close to one another. There are the reasons hormonally and physically for healing in our own bodies, that having the infant close to us helps with that, and sleep and all of those things. So, you know, it's really a personal choice, but but it's sort of a secret. I'll hear this from parents a lot, that they do have their babies in their rooms, or the grandparents will whisper that to me, well, I did that too. So it's really up to you as a person, and to just be safe as we are if we have the child not in the room with us, if that helps.
In the chat, Marie also says we co-sleep as well with both kids, and we are also a biracial couple with a Caribbean parent. It seems to be just what comes naturally to the family. Another comment about co-sleeping from Amelia in the chat. My 7-year-old independent son also co-sleeps from birth, and I'm interested in knowing in what literature or sites you can recommend and what to expect on when he will want to sleep in his own room and bed. I don't want to push it, but I want to be prepared.
Well, there are a number of books on the process of co-sleeping and those things. I come always back as a Montessorian and as a human being, I come back to observation and observing, not just externally, but observing internally. When there's readiness in me for something, when I see readiness in a child and the capacity for a child or the longing in a child to move in their own process, whatever that is, and this would be part of that observation. So again, there are books out there. There are classic books on the family bed is a classic book that was the first book that was written a long time long, way back when, but many things since then. But I always come back to where we are in our own person and observing from there. And I would look for readiness signs that you're seeing for independence. And the inner observer, there may be, I'm not saying this is true of you in any way, but there can be in parenting and as teachers too, resistance that rises up in us around any steps that a child is taking. It may have no bearing on what you're talking about, but just as to bring consciousness to that self-awareness in us on what's happening in any process that we're in. That's what I would say. And Carmen, you had a question. Can you unmute?
Yes, now I am there.
Yes, hi.
Hi, so I just want to ask you about the difference when a mother gives birth through a C-section. I had my 2 babies natural, and it's a wonderful experience to have them skin to skin and having that shot of energy right after you hear they're crying and everything comes like, wow, this is amazing, and you melt in love. However, going through the other experience that other moms going through C-section, so how they can work with the attached to the baby, because the experience of these women are completely different. So how you can gain that step with your baby along the way, or if it is has a different impact from the babies who has a natural birth.
Well, it is a different process, but to me, it comes the first step, backing up is the relationship and the collaboration that we create with our caregivers, so that when there are, maybe this is a planned cesarean, or maybe it's something that the appropriate care is that model of what they now will sometimes call a belly birth. that you've had, hopefully a person has had relationship and there's been trust built and there's just been that knowing of each other, so that whatever's happening, we can move with it. And now it depends on where you live, but there was a birth recently that I was talking with the parent, and she had immediate, this is in my area, which is not really, I mean, in a bigger city is probably much better. I mean, you can have the screen where you can see everything, but this mother was, the moment after they had looked at the child, well, they did delayed cord, they waited to cut the cord for longer than, I was surprised at how long it was. And then once they just checked him, and then that child the mother was able to, so they laid him down a bit, and then she was able to reach and pull him up and they had removed her gown so that she was skin to skin at that moment. So again, it comes down to conversation and building that if possible, and if we're thrown in the moment of it, to know your options and to ask for what you would like, because there's so much more known around the needs of the infant and the needs of the mother now, as we just talked about, and we can, as closely as we can have that baby with us skin to skin. That's the hope. And then in this case, that child never left her, and so when she went to the recovery room, he was with her skin to skin and from onwards. So I don't know if that helps, but and it just moves on from there, because our experience is our experience, and our experience and our baby's experience is unique, and we can have, we all have our process. I don't know if that helps, but
Thank you. Yes.
you're welcome.
We have about 5 minutes left to before we complete the hour. So if there are any final questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or just unmute yourself. We've had quite a bit of discussion already, so that's great. We've had some wonderful questions asked from all of you guys as well. Anya, will you be sharing the recording of the session? Yes, we will have the recording available so that you can look back on it or reference any information that you'd like to revisit. So that will be available, yes.
You should go to your school to get the link to the recording. So that's we'll release it to your schools, and then they'll provide it to you. So.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a little bit, Camilla, about maybe next week's topic?
Yeah,
If
sure.
nobody has any more questions here for tonight.
If there aren't any more questions, I'm just gonna, I guess, talk a little bit about next week's session before we wrap up tonight. So next week, we were originally going to have Mary Lou Cobb return, but she will be unable to present in this particular parenting session. Hopefully in a future one, she'll be able to return. But we've got a great speaker who actually as well previously spoke at our parenting series, and that's Lorena Seidel. She is a Montessorian trained in the primary years, so that 3 to 6 age group, but she's going to be talking about tantrums and defiance, which is probably one of the biggest challenges you'll face in early childhood parenting. It's definitely one of the most, I don't know, commonly asked questions whenever we get into these parenting series is, how do I deal with these tantrums? A lot of them are from toddler parents or even in that primary age group. So if you are within that range, you'll definitely want to join in on our next call as well. She'll be giving a presentation on how you can really just overcome the challenges that tantrums present, how you can work with your child emotionally, and she will also be answering your questions. I can say from our past session, Lorena is great at answering parent questions. She's great at just breaking things down. She is a mother of 3 herself as well. So she's been through it. So definitely we love to see you all there for the next session. Like Camille said, if you would like to see a recording of the session, just reach out to your schools. We'll post, what we do is we send a link to the recordings to all the schools that are participating in the series so that they can then share it with their parent community. Dan, could you repeat the name of next week's speaker? I'm just going to type it in the chat. It's Lorena Seidel. You can also check if you, her website is just lorenaseidel.com, and you can learn a little bit about her if you haven't already read up on her with our registration page. She is a Montessorian and trained in positive discipline, and she speaks a lot on emotional intelligence, parenting with emotional intelligence. She's fantastic. So we really hope to see you guys there, but thank you all for joining us at this session. Dolores says, thank you, Pamela. This was great. Thank you, Camilla and Camilla. And thank you to our great speaker, Pamela, who took time to put together this presentation and share her wisdom on Montessori from the beginning.
Thank you for inviting me.
It was a pleasure. All right, everyone, have a great evening, and we'll see you in a week, hopefully.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everyone. Have a
Thank
great
you.
Mhm.